Hello and welcome to the News9 Plus show on the world's first news and current affairs OTT platform, News9 Plus. I am Aditya Raj Kaul. Let's start with what's making the news. Pakistan has violated the February 2021 ceasefire understanding with unprovoked firing and mortar shelling in the Arnia sector of international border with India. India's border security force responded befittingly by targeting posts of Pakistani rangers across the border. A court in Qatar has handed death sentence to 8 former Indian Navy personnel for alleged espionage charges. The 8 Indians who were arrested last year have been in solitary confinement since August 2022. The Israeli Defense Forces for the second straight day conducted ground and air raids in Gaza targeting Hamas anti-tank missile launch sites, military command and control centers, as well as Hamas terrorists. The US Defense Department has confirmed deploying 900 troops to the Middle East, which aims to enhance regional deterrence and strengthen US forces' protection capabilities. And finally, the European Union has called for a continued rapid, safe and unhindered humanitarian access and aid to reach those in need through all necessary measures inside Gaza. And now, our top focus on the News9 Plus show continues to be the Israel-Hamas conflict in Gaza. The IDF on Friday said its fighter jets struck 3 Hamas senior operatives in the Daraj Tuffah Battalion. These operatives played a significant role in the invasion and murderous terror attack against Israel on October 7, killing 1,400. Meanwhile, ground assault raids have continued in the region for the second straight day by the Israeli army using tanks and drones supported by the airstrikes by the Israeli Air Force. Is this the beginning of the ground invasion, or is US buying more time to not let war escalate? To discuss this and more, we have a very special guest in the News9 Plus show studios today, General Satish Dua, who is the former chief of the Integrated Defense Staff and, of course, the former chief of the 15th Corps in Kashmir. So let me begin, in fact, by asking you about what's been happening in Israel and the Gaza area over the last 2 weeks. You, of course, been known for the 2016 surgical strikes that happened in Pakistan Occupied Kashmir, and the stories are legendary, really. But what's been happening in Gaza over the last 2 days? There's a ground invasion, but these are targeted strikes that are happening using tanks, drones, and the ground assault teams of the IDF. Can this be compared with the surgical strikes that we did in POK?
Well, Aditya, the answer is yes and no. It is a trans-border raid. It's an attack across the borders into Gaza, and that's what the surgical strike did. But I think, in my view, the comparison ends there, because what is happening is that in a surgical strike, just like a surgery, you don't damage anything else except the intended organ. So that's what we did. We struck the terror camps across the LOC in multiple locations. In Gaza also, the IDF is striking multiple targets, and like you brought out, some of these commanders who brought on the raid on the 7th October have been taken out. But the fact is that there is also heavy collateral damage. A lot of civilians, women, children included, have also taken the hit. So to that extent, it is not really a surgical strike. It's a very strong strike across the border.
Well, I'll come to the collateral damage and the civilians also in a bit, because we have some stories that we will run around it. I wanted to ask you on the expansion of this war. Ever since the terror attack in Israel, in southern Israel, we've seen the airstrikes taking place. In these airstrikes now, more than 7,000 people have been killed in Gaza. We've of course also seen the north border in Lebanon that is of course firing towards Israel as well. Is there a possibility of a two-front war here, and do you think that this war is increasingly expanding?
Aditya, I think it already has expanded. The 2 fronts that you mentioned have been live from day one. I mean, the Hezbollah from Lebanon actually started off the second day itself. The exchange of fire started off. So it has expanded. There is a threat of the West Bank joining in the effort. America has already sent troops has sent the carrier battle groups, etc. America has, US has already targeted, as per their own statement, the Iranian targets in Syria, in Iraq, for protection of the US troops over there. So they are already being drawn in. So that actually, to my mind, the day is not far. Are we really looking at Iran coming in real time, in whichever form it does? So I think this Middle East is such a cauldron that is bound to expand unless we move towards a settlement, a peaceful settlement, a negotiated settlement. If we don't move towards that, Middle East has wheels within wheels, and we've seen that over the past 6 decades or 7 decades, that this always escalates into something bigger.
Well, for a minute, let's turn back to what happened on October 7. The unprecedented terror attack using land, sea and air. You saw these paragliders, hundreds in number, actually landing in southern Israel and going on a killing rampage. They visited a lot of these communities called kibbutz and killed the civilians. They went to this rave party where again youth were there, and many of them were taken hostages and many were killed there as well. In your experience dealing with terrorists in this part of the world, how much time do you think this kind of a terror attack preparation would have really taken? And do you think this would have happened only in Gaza, or do you think there are state and non-state actors that would have been utilized? A lot of money, a lot of resources, a lot of ammunition went into training them, and the kind of silence that was maintained around it.
First, the short answer is it would have certainly taken a very long time to prepare for this. The kind of precision with which the attack was launched, the raid was launched, all 3 modes were used, that is land, air and sea. The intelligence was, famed Israeli intelligence, both Mossad and Shin Bet, did not have a whiff of it. Not only that, the IDF did not really react in the time frame that one expects out of the Israeli Defense Forces after the raid had been launched. That's why, because, if you read different accounts, they say that even Hamas was not perhaps prepared for this the number of casualties and the number of hostages that it took. So, and we are already hearing reports, truth will out in some time to come, but we are hearing reports of the training taking place in Iran, planning taking place in Doha, and so many other, as I was talking earlier, so many other wheels within wheels are emerging, and some more will emerge. So I would like to end my intervention by saying, Aditya, it certainly there is much more to it than meets the eye. It is not just Hamas deciding one day. They have amassed so much of missiles and rockets and other ammunition and platforms that they could do this. They could subdue this intelligence. And I have not been to Gaza, but I have been to the Gaza border on Israel. I have been briefed by the commander there on the checkpost, and they told us with pride how many sensors they have, the fence that is there between Israel and Gaza, how strong it is. And I do compare it with the our LOC in J&K, because my service has been in J&K, and I felt that was a very strong one. To be able to subdue that and yet surprise them and carry out effective raids and then go back with hostages, I think does call for some more preparation and extra help.
And also, if we stay with this terror attack that happened, and you touched upon it, the kind of intelligence failure.
Yes.
You know, Mossad's stories are again legendary.
Absolutely.
Shin Bet's stories, even Aman, the military intelligence of the IDF. What would have happened? You know, do you think they were overconfident, or do you think that they felt that they have already put in a deterrence that Hamas, for Hamas, it will be unthinkable to plan such a conspiracy and terror attack?
I think it's a combination of factors. Again, this is personal, just my personal opinion.
Sure.
It's a combination of factors. A couple of them that you mentioned. Overconfidence or complacence, whatever you say. There is an aura of invincibility of Israeli Defense Forces. There is an aura of invincibility of the Mossad, Shin Bet and Aman. So that is on one hand. On the other hand, their focus was more towards north. They always expected the strike or the threat more from the Hezbollah across in Lebanon. and so maybe they were not focused, so focused this side. So I think it's a combination of factors. Let's not forget that 50 years ago also, they were surprised in a very similar manner. They were totally surprised when they were attacked.
Yom Kippur War.
Yom Kippur War, yes.
Absolutely. Again, now that the ground invasion is being much talked about, do you feel that in this kind of an urban warfare setup, where Israel is planning to send in troops inside, and there could be a lot of difficulties for urban warfare, apart from booby traps, apart from buildings where the Hamas would already have taken positions, and they use an extensive tunnel network, perhaps for 500 kilometers underneath Gaza. So how challenging will it be for the Israelis to go for this urban warfare, considering what the US did in Iraq? We have examples from Mosul, we have examples from Aleppo, we have also examples where the US military has quoted to the Israelis about Fallujah in 2004, where the US troops took a lot of hit. So how challenging will this ground invasion really be for the Israelis?
To my mind, the terrain friction and the friction that the Israeli Defense Force is going to meet is going to be phenomenally high. And it is my guess that that is why they are preparing for it. These raids and missile attacks are okay, that have been going on for last couple of days. Allow me to just go away from the topic only to come back to it. I have served for 3 years in Vietnam as defense attaché.
Right.
I have seen those Kuchi tunnels and Bin Mok tunnels up close, and I have seen how effective they were. The Americans fought them, or at least tried to fight them, and had to leave after 19 years. The tunnel network in Kuchi tunnels in Vietnam, in south of Vietnam, is not even half of this, in terms of half of what Hamas has, what we know of, in the entire network length. It is Kacha tunnels. They are not, these are bomb-proof shelters, and this is called the Gaza Metro. So there is going to be a lot of friction. Then let's also take lessons from Russia-Ukraine war. Without any tunnels, fighting in built-up area is a very tough call. You have to clear house by house, room by room, mohalla by mohalla, street by street. It takes a toll, and all these tanks that we have been seeing amassed on the Gaza border, they fail. You cannot get inside the built-up area, and we all have been hearing, and by now even an average viewer knows that Gaza is the most densely populated strip of land in the world. So with all this happening, I don't think it's going to be easy for for Israel. Carrying out raids and missile attacks and targeted killings is fine, but to be able to roll with their tanks through the Gaza built-up area is going to be a very, very tough call.
Well, we'll take this forward about the urban warfare and how the Middle East is increasingly getting involved in this. But we have worked on a story on Iran's proxies in the region and how they're operating to target Israel. Let's listen in. Just days after Hamas' attack on Israel and its civilians, a US warship intercepted and destroyed missiles and drones aimed at Israel, launched by the Houthis, another terrorist group based in Yemen. This is the latest militant group joining the ongoing Israel-Hamas war after Hezbollah.
The crew of the guided missile destroyer USS Carney, operating in the northern Red Sea earlier today, shot down 3 land attack cruise missiles and several drones that were launched by Houthi forces in Yemen. Information about these engagements is still being processed. We cannot say for certain what these missiles and drones were targeting, but they were launched from Yemen, heading north along the Red Sea, potentially towards targets in Israel.
With Israel beginning to fight a two-front war with Hamas and Hezbollah, there seems to be an attempt for a third front being opened by Houthis.
See, both Houthis and Hezbollah have 2 different functions. Through Houthis, Iranians can attack American ships. Through Houthis, Iranians can attack civilian ships full of oil. It can be an ecological disaster. What Hezbollah does is it opens up the threat of a second front for Israel. So even if they are involved in Gaza Strip at a particular point of time, you have more than 1 lakh Hezbollah fighters trained and blooded in the Syrian war. They can start attacking Israel from north. It's not as if Hezbollah fighters can overrun the Israeli defenses, but they can engage them there.
Though all these militant groups are from different countries, what's common between them is their benefactor, and that's Iran.
Iran's support is by training, by weapons, by funding, by transfer of knowledge and expertise, also getting a political backing and arms by Russia.
Iran has been building a network of terror proxies across West Asia since its 1979 revolution. As of today, it has allies among more than a dozen major militias such as Hamas in Gaza, Hezbollah in Lebanon, and the Houthis in Yemen.
When we talk about proxies, the 3 main proxies of Iran are Hamas, which is Sunni, a branch of the Muslim Brotherhood. Another proxy is Hezbollah in the north border of Israel, in Lebanon. Another proxy is the Houthi in Yemen.
Houthis were born because Shias who were part of the mountainous terrain of Yemeni state never felt integrated. They felt that the Sunnis took the prime cake, and it led to militancy, terrorism, and they got support from Iran. Now, Hezbollah was born out of a unique post-colonial experiment. Israel invaded Lebanon in 1980s. Iran started supporting those who were opposed to it in South Lebanon. They created a new organization called Hezbollah. It was a Shiite organization. Iran supported that organization. Hezbollah fighters fought against Israel. Hezbollah fighters fought for Bashar Assad. Hezbollah fighters are now fighting for Hamas.
The US security presence in the region and its strong backing of Israel is not only important for Israel but also for the region at large. It may seem to be aimed at Hamas on the face of it, but in reality, it is to deter Iran, its other strongest proxies and backers such as Russia and China.
The US security presence in the region and its strong backing of Israel, really it's unimaginable and historic.
Obviously, Iran is able to pursue its ambitions only because of backing from other states. In fact, we have been seeing very strong ties between Moscow, Tehran, and the Hamas. Hamas for many years has been a welcome guest in Moscow, and even a week ago, following the October 7 attacks, the Deputy Minister of Foreign Affairs of Russia met the political leadership of Hamas in Qatar. So far, we are not seeing Iran pushing Hezbollah to join a full-scale or a multi-front war, and is limited to a proxy war.
The only reason why Israel doesn't fight Iran is because Iran is a big country. It's a big country with a big standing army. So only thing they can do against Iran are strategic operations. But they can't run Iranian state.
Will it then continue the war through its proxies, as Israel this time seems to be bent upon going all out against its enemies? That is the question to be asked. General Dua, so we tried to explain in this explainer about how the Iran's proxies are working in the region. Of course, we know about Hezbollah, we know about the Houthis operating from Yemen, and now, of course, the coordination with Hamas as well. Do you think there is an unprecedented Shia-Sunni unity that is being displayed, and Iran has been trying to work around it for years? Because you served in Kashmir, and there have been fractions, yes, not just in Kashmir, but all across the world, wherever there is a conflict between these communities. But Iran's game plan forever has been to display some kind of a unity to target this common enemy, Israel and the Zionists.
I think it's the question of enemy's enemy is your friend.
Yeah.
There is a lot of Shia-Sunni divide the world over. We see a little bit in J&K. Now, of course, Ladakh is separate, but in Badgam area also we see a little. over here. We see a lot of it in Gilgit-Baltistan and many other parts. In Middle East, it is very pronounced. But the way Iran has supported Hamas, if all reports are to be believed, and we have to take them at the face value, the way Iran has supported Hamas speaks of the fact that enemy's enemy is your friend. And that's whether it is the Jews or whether it is the Christian world. That's where, to my mind, Islam as a religion will come together.
We are now in a time where for the last 20 months there's a Russia-Ukraine war that's underway. And now the Middle East has erupted. You know, it's not just about Israel and Hamas. There are attacks taking place in Syria. The US bases in Iraq, Syria and other places are being targeted. And we've seen China's provocations and other places as well where conflicts are underway. Are we heading towards some kind of a Cold War, or do you think that the world is divided like never before?
I think we are headed towards a very fractious geopolitics, and which will impact the geoeconomics, because, you know, President Biden has just yesterday given a statement that this is one of the reasons is to stall this India, Middle East, Europe corridor, by the timing of Hamas attack. So we are talking of geoeconomics there. As far as the war, widening out, you just now spoke about other countries involved. China is waiting to get into the act. Russia, as of this morning news, I heard that Russia has, Putin has received a delegation from Hamas, if I'm not wrong. So there are other players who are getting drawn into it. So directly or indirectly, we are seeing a widening of conflict in the Middle East.
Well, we are seeing widening of the conflict. We'll continue with this discussion, but the elusive two-state solution is what lies at the heart of the decades-long Israel-Palestine conflict and the festering wounds. The two-state solution for the Israel-Palestine conflict refers to an arrangement where Israeli and the Palestinian states coexist. The most significant of the two-state solution negotiations were the Oslo Accords, which divided the Palestinian land into 3 administrative divisions. Yet, no final agreement was ever achieved. Why has the solution remained so elusive? Let's watch this story by Ghulam Jilani.
From 1948, if you go back to, after the British mandate expired, then this UN Security Council Resolution 181 created two-state solution. Israelis accepted that resolution and declared their state. Palestine did not agree to that, and then they went to war with Israel. And since then, Israel, which has become far more stronger with the Western support and due to their own enterprise and survival instinct, I would say, that they have continued to defeat in every single war subsequently the Arab countries. And in the process, we have seen until the Oslo Accords happened in 1993, there was no real progress that happened.
The elusive two-state solution is what lies at the heart of the decades-long Israel-Palestine conflict and the festering wounds. The two-state solution refers to an arrangement whereby Israeli and Palestinian states coexist in the region in peace and harmony. The first proposal for the creation of Jewish and Arab states was made in the British Mandate of Palestine in 1937. The most significant of the two-state solution negotiations resulted in the Oslo Accords in 1993, which officially divided Palestinian land into 3 administrative divisions. But no final agreement was ever reached. The violent outbreak of the Second Intifada in 2000 was enough to derail the negotiations and prove their futility.
The creation of Israel itself left a lot of unhappiness and anger amongst Arabs and Palestinians in the region. Nehru himself at that time had said that this idea of having Israel in the area can succeed only if there are 2 states side by side, Palestinians and Israel, their own states, independent, etc., which particularly the Palestinians who can call their home. That has not happened so far. In fact, increasing number of Palestinians have become refugees.
But the whole spirit of Oslo failed because conversation took place, but the reality on the ground differed. Palestinian Authority, which was born out of this Oslo conversation, could not stop settlement in West Bank. And on the other hand, you had Intifada. So both Israelis and the young generation of Palestinians were horrified at seeing each other fight. One seeing the land being gobbled up by Israelis, and the other watching the Palestinian boys throw stones at these soldiers.
So I think to some extent the Palestinians are also responsible for it, this state of affairs. They are a divided house. They have a problem in Gaza, then there is a problem in Palestine, Ramallah, and they are not coming together. A divided house always has a problem and falls. And Israel has been able to take advantage of that also. You see, the problem is that Hamas does not recognize the existence of Israel. And it uses violence to achieve that end. Right. So therefore, you cannot expect Israel to have a dialogue with them. Even though we have all seen in past that for its convenience, Israel had supported Hamas sometimes to undercut the PLO. So I think that this is a situation which is very, very dicey.
The TV9 network and News9 Plus has been continuously covering the Israel-Hamas war from ground in Israel, in Gaza, and of course from New Delhi as well. And joining us is the defense editor of TV9 Mediadverse, Sumit Chaudhary. Sumit, if you could tell us, what exactly was the experience like in the last 18 days that you covered the war in Israel? And of course, you went inside Gaza as well. Tell us about that.
Thank you very much, Aditya. First of all, I just want to say that I have been reporting all across different conflict zones. But when we talk about the conflict zone, I have covered Afghanistan, we have covered Kashmir also, few areas of Kashmir, then Russia-Ukraine war. But I have never seen such kind of conflict area when we talk about the Israel and Gaza. I think on 9th, when I reach early morning to all those areas where the atrocities happen by the Hamas, I have seen such kind of thing which was very horrible. And in 18 days, almost 18 days, I have covered all across the southern part of Israel, and during that coverage, during that visit, I have seen it is not only a war, but it's something new, because it's beyond the urban warfare, because Hamas have been taking a shelter in the what you call a tunnel and a lifeline for them, and it's a kind of metro. It's around 15 to 60 feet inside the land, so it will be very difficult because no army has such a specialization to do something like that, especially when you talk about not only Israel but also US Army doesn't have that expertise. So it's a very unique kind of warfare which Israel have started, and I think that is the reason why from last 20 to 21 days they are not able to go inside Gaza. They only done operations, they fall back to their operational area. So that is something very challenging for them also. And when you talk about not only the northern area of Gaza but also the central part, it's full with the locals and the overground workers who support Hamas. Right. So it will be very difficult for them to counter and do operations in such kind of area.
Well, of course, the brutality is never seen before. In fact, I'm speaking to a lot of Jewish friends who say that ever since the Holocaust, the single-day casualties are the biggest ever, the massacre that we have seen. And you yourself reported from a lot of kibbutz which were attacked and the kind of brutality that the people saw there. But Sumit, you say that this is a different kind of an urban warfare setup. Do you feel that the people, of course, support Hamas out there? A lot of population has been radicalized as well. But are the population also being used as human shield there? Because that's the kind of perception going out. A lot of people that I spoke to said that they cannot really go out. They don't have the opportunity to go out and leave Gaza.
Yes, you have correctly mentioned this, Aditya, because I have seen some videos. I have seen I have read some reports also. In fact, the Pentagon report also clearly mentioned that how Hamas have been using hospitals, the civil administrative offices, not only for their shield as a local shield, but also their arms and ammunition depot as well. They have established their command and control center there. So it's something very challenging for, I think, for Israel to counter and to attack all these locations. If you see that what happened on that hospital where more than 500 people has been killed of Palestine, and that time the reports have come that they have killed the innocent people. But before that, 4 or 5 times the Gaza also, the Israel forces have mentioned to evacuate all these hospitals because they have been used by the Hamas cadres and the commanders as in their arms and ammunition depot.
Absolutely. Sumit, stay with us. I want to go across to Tammy bin Haim. Tammy, you heard Sumit. He's a war correspondent who's been continuously reporting over the last 18 days from Israel-Gaza border. Do you see the war escalating from there? Because it seems to be going on a very snail pace. Israel has been repeatedly saying that the ground invasion will happen and giving an opportunity to the civilian population in Gaza to leave. But how do you see the really war escalating from here?
Thank you for having me here. But you yourself and definitely Sumit and the military analysts, I think, have analyzed it very well. Israel has some targets to achieve, some goals to achieve, and they will do it, according to the way our military sees it in the best way possible to achieve these goals. And I just want to mention that, nobody has seen such warfare. And we need to prepare for it as best we can. We need to free the hostages. We need to make sure Israel is safe again. And talking about Israel not being safe, just yesterday, the terrorists tried to use these tunnels, the Hamas, to enter Israel again. We found them and stopped the terrorist group that was trying to go first through the tunnel and then via the sea into Israel. And just now, they're again shooting rockets at southern Israel. As I was waiting, there was a notification of another rocket attack. And even this morning, some unmanned aircraft made it all the way to Sinai, to Taba, and very sadly injured 6 people, which is in Egypt. So as we can see, and again, your experts mentioned it very, very clearly, they are so well armed. Most of it by Iran, whether with selling them weapons, giving them weapons, teaching them how to make their own weapons, how to use them, how to prepare, and training both the commanders and the soldiers. But they have so much that even after over 2 weeks, about 19 or 20 days of the IDF attacking them, of targeting their command and control centers, targeting their weapon storages, targeting their launchers,
right,
and some of the tunnels, they're still in a position where they can try to infiltrate Israel and still in a position to shoot rockets in Israel. And obviously, we can't have that. And you mentioned a few areas like Mosul, and the Vietnam War was mentioned. These were wars for good purpose, and definitely fighting ISIS and getting rid of ISIS is a very good purpose. But for us, for Israel, this terror organization, along with the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, along with Hezbollah, they sit on our borders. Mm-hmm. They're not hundreds of miles away or a continent away. They're right at our borders. So we have to make sure that we eliminate all their capabilities, that we destroy Hamas, that even if it wants to do it again, and obviously they want, in their charter, they say their main goal, and this is what ties them together, what ties Hezbollah, what ties the Iranian regime to this purpose, the Palestinian Islamic Jihad, is that they want to kill all Israelis, kill all Jewish people, and basically wipe Israel off the map. And we have to make sure, because, Sumit saw how close it is. Literally a few feet away. We have to make sure this doesn't happen.
If I can take that to General Dua, how can peace really be given an opportunity here? Because this seems to be escalating really fast. And, we've been speaking about a two-state solution. India supports a two-state solution for a very long time. Spain, in fact, has come out with a statement that within 6 weeks, there should be a peace conference to discuss the two-state solution. In this kind of a war, in this kind of a lot of provocations coming in from Iran, the US, of course, backing Israel completely in this war, do you see peace being given any opportunity in the coming weeks?
That's a good question. And you know what's a good question, Aditya? A good question is one to which there are no easy answers. Now, if there were any easy answers to this question, we would have moved towards it, because decade after decade we continue to see such wars or conflicts in Middle East, but centered around Israel, Lebanon, Palestine. But I think at the end of it, Israel is also going to be very badly affected. Let us say they go into Gaza. They will take a lot of casualties. There will be a lot of collateral damage. We are seeing what is happening in Russia, Ukraine, minus the tunnels, etc., and such a densely populated pocket. So it is going to be mayhem on both sides.
Right.
So if we recognize that, then I suppose I would hope and pray that sense prevails sooner rather than later, that eventual solution perhaps has to be in some form of a two-state solution. Everyone would agree to that. If there are contours to be worked out that need to be worked out, we need to do that. We need to have more sane voices across the globe coming in, not voices or encouragement to the conflict, to the wars. As what is happening, if Iran is getting in, if Russia is getting in, Russia today received the Hamas delegation, if China is waiting on the wings, I mean, then we are only looking at how we are going to escalate it, US, Europe, everyone. I think we need saner voices to prevail and try and give peace a chance, because no one in war, I mean, I've been a military man 4 decades, no one comes out the winner in war.
General Dua, if I can also ask you from your experience, when the Indian Army operates in Jammu and Kashmir,
yes,
a lot of emphasis is given on securing the lives of the civilians.
True.
Every time there's a conflict, I've seen it firsthand, and of course you've served it in many roles in the Jammu and Kashmir. Collateral damage is something that the army wants to avoid. But we are seeing here in Gaza a lot of civilians being killed as well. Of course, many being used as human shields as well by the Hamas. How do you see this comparison?
You are right to say, you are a Kashmiri yourself, but I am just saying this for the viewers, that yes, Indian Army pays a lot of attention, a lot of emphasis is given on not causing collateral damage. We go out of our way. I mean, I will be bold enough to say, I'll stick my neck out to say, there have been instances, there have been operations where we'd rather let the terrorists get away rather than kill 7 people in the house that they are taking shelter in. I mean, when we know that this is going to be the cost. Because we believe in this, the terrorist has a shelf life. If not today, then tomorrow. If not this unit, then some other unit, we will get him. Not only this, Aditya, we also give terrorists a fair chance to surrender. You know, there are so many instances where we use loud hailers, and I am from Jammu and Kashmir Light Infantry Regiment. My regiment interpreters are used to communicate with them, try and get them to surrender before we start engaging.
But that's inside our own country, inside our own territory.
Yes.
And here Israel is getting terror attacks from outside, from Gaza continuously. And imagine the number of terrorists, 1,500 in number, launching this kind of an attack. So that's why the Israel's call is that this is for self-defense.
Your point is very well taken and very well understood over the last 20 days. But let me also point out to you, there is a different ethic of Indian Army. We were in Sri Lanka for more than 2 years. That was not our country. We were fighting such terrorists. We've taken so much, the Indian Army has taken so many casualties, but even there, our focus was on minimizing collateral damage at several times at the expense of operational expediency.
All right, Sumit, if I can get you in again, the kind of humanitarian crisis that's underway, and we spoke about a lot of civilians being taken as human shields. Tell us about the tunnel network that is there. I remember in November 2022, I was in Israel, and the IDF took me to one of the tunnels right at the Gaza border, which was being used to smuggle in ammunition and send in terrorists. Quite similar to what we see here in the Jammu border as well. But these tunnels are very finely designed, very permanent, and good structures. It has been made by engineers and people who are very educated. So how big is this tunnel network, and how do they utilize this?
First of all, I just wanted to mention one thing, Aditya. There is a huge difference when we compare Kashmir and the Gaza. The biggest difference is the Hamas also has a political backing. They have a political influence in the Gaza Strip. We have also seen their political leaders, their army commanders, their military commanders. So there is a bunch of people who have been handling all Gaza with the support of Hamas. Hamas is always a very deep-rooted influence in Gaza, not only Gaza but also in the Western Bank. The biggest challenge for Israel is to eliminate both the things, the political leadership and the military leadership both. And second, when you ask me about the tunnel thing, I think that is an unexploded thing. You have only seen one part of the tunnel.
Yes.
They have shown us the only one part of the tunnel which is used for the smuggling of weapons. But this time, the weapons comes from abroad as well. When I speak to the IDF commanders, I had done an interview with the several commanders. I asked them very specifically, how do the Hamas get all these capabilities? Are you not aware of this? Are you failed in this? So they have mentioned me one thing very, very good about this, that Aditya, that around 70 to 80% arms and ammunition production units are in Gaza, which is maintained by the Hamas. But rest of the 20% they have received from many countries. They have mentioned North Korea, they have mentioned Iran also. So these are the ammunitions, arms and ammunitions which have been received by the Hamas from very long period. Although it's very clear, they also accept this point that yes, their intelligence got failed. They got intelligence from the Egypt as well, but they are not able to analyze and implement all those intelligence input on ground. So that is the main challenge right now with the IDF and the intelligence agencies of Israel. They have to neutralize both political and military leadership. They need to neutralize all those other terrorist organizations, the commanders of other terrorist organizations who have been supporting them. It's not about Hezbollah, it's ISIS also. They are getting a support from other organizations like Houthi also. So all these things have a very larger picture right now. This is not only the certain particular terror attack, it's something big, because we have seen after this attack, every terrorist organization comes into one umbrella and they are supporting Hamas. It's whether you talk about Taliban, ISIS, you're talking about Hezbollah, you're talking about Houthi, everyone is at the same page. So that is the biggest challenge for the Israeli forces right now.
Tammy, if I can get you in again on this, President Biden yesterday said that one of the reasons that the Hamas terror attack took place, apart from their hatred for the Jews, is the IMEC that was announced at the G20. This important corridor between India, Middle East and Europe. How important is this statement? Haifa port in Israel was one of the key elements of the India, Middle East, Europe corridor. Do you think Hamas and particularly Iran did not want this to happen? And apart from that, of course, the Saudi and Israel normalization that would have put perhaps Hamas into history.
Yeah, I heard the statement as well yesterday, and it makes a lot of sense. Obviously, one is, as you yourself also said, Hamas is a terrorist organization. Their main goal is to destroy us. But terrorists also try to ruin any semblance of civil life, any semblance of peace. If there are things happening in the area that will lead to quiet, that will lead to peace, this defeats their purpose. They want life as we know it, regular life, normal life, prosperous life, not to go on. So it makes a lot of sense that on the background of saying, building the route between India, the Middle East, and up to, from Israel to Greece and Europe, the talks with Saudi Arabia, and they seem to be going forward and going to a positive turn. It makes a lot of sense that Hamas, the Iranian regime, other terrorist groups in the area, or those supporting terrorists in the area, would want to either make it totally stop, and cause war and friction and terror in the area. So, it does make a lot of sense that that's on the background. But on the other hand, this is one of Hamas's and the Iranian regime's goal. They're never shy about it. They've been saying it for years, that they want to destroy us, that they want an Islamic caliphate, that, we shouldn't be there and their job is to kill us. So if it wasn't this, if it wasn't the talks with Saudi Arabia, wasn't the connection between India, Middle East, and Europe, they would have found, some other cause, some other way of doing it. They were preparing for quite a while. We all understand it now. We see the results. Right. So it would have happened otherwise. And the Abraham Accords from 3 years ago as well. That was, if we're looking for, the new Middle East that we were all striving for.
Well, these are excuses perhaps used by Hamas. They anyways wanted to target the Jews and Israel, and that's what has happened. Last word to you, General Dua. Briefly, I asked you this before and I'll ask you again. On the ground invasion, from your military experience, it's a difficult territory there. Sumit, who has been there, spoke about the challenges that the IDF could be facing. Do you see these preemptive attacks continuing for a longer duration, or do you think that a full-blown military assault in Gaza will happen perhaps any day?
Well, for a few days certainly these raids will will continue. Like Sumit said, they fall back to their firm bases. If they have to go in a full-blown attack, as Israel has been announcing to the world, let's also not forget another angle. I spoke only about terrain friction. That means go into the streets and houses is not going to be easy militarily. You have to clear room by room. But let's also not forget the fact that the issue of hostages. You have more than 200 hostages which don't involve only Israeli citizens. There are other citizens, other nationalities involved.
Yes.
It is going to become a very big issue. So I think a bigger concern for Israel is, apart from the humanitarian aid should continue to flow in, apart from the collateral damage, is the fact that what are they going to do about those hostages who are endangered. Let's not forget couple of years ago, for one corporal, more than 1,000 prisoners were exchanged by Israel.
Right.
So, I agree. The leadership in Israel has made some statements. Everybody should be prepared to pay a price. Statements are good. But when actually you start seeing bodies of women and children, it turns the world opinion. And I think even Israel will start losing the goodwill that it is today it has, because Israel has suffered at the hands of this terrorist organization called Hamas. But the moment body bags start flowing, hostages start getting killed or things like that, God forbid it happens, that will be a different ball game altogether. So I think there are many more angles to their full-blown invasion.
Of course, a lot of disinformation and misinformation and narratives are being built around, but that's all the time we have right now. General Dua, thank you very much for joining in. Tammy, thank you again, as always, for joining in and giving your opinions. And Sumit, thanks so much. What a brave reportage from Gaza and Israel. And viewers, we have this interesting interview that our reporter Neha Khanna did with Israel's former Prime Minister Ehud Barak. And this is the moment, while the interview happens, that there's a barrage of rockets that come in, and Ehud Barak, along with his wife, have to take shelter. Thank you for watching News9 Plus Show.
You now probably hear the sirens outside. The sirens means that rockets from the Gaza Strip are coming to Tel Aviv and Tel Aviv. In every modern apartment, we have now a safety room with heavy reinforced concrete as the walls to suffer even a direct hit of a missile. That's the reason why my wife also joined me, because we have to be in the safety room. I made this place where I talk to you. It's the safety room that I made the library out. So
your wife is more than welcome on our show. Great to see her.
Yeah. In a moment you will hear. In a moment you will hear the interception by our Iron Dome that kills the rockets in order to avoid them from falling on the heads of innocent civilians, as you mentioned. So the difference is that Hamas is trying to kill innocent civilians in Tel Aviv. They failed because we developed this Iron Dome. Okay, I happen also to know Guterres very well. We were prime minister at the same time. He was prime minister of Portugal, and when I was prime minister of Israel. And he's once again, he's also a respected diplomat, but he's wrong. Drawing a moral equivalence between the attack, the slaughtering of innocent civilians by the Hamas in a deliberate operation, and our response. Oh, here you hear?
The siren. Okay, it's the Iron Dome intercepting the rockets, is it?
Yeah. I wonder whether you could hear, because we heard the explosions of the interception.